Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It is hopefully day 2 of 31 Days of Kenya for December, and this is my November wrap up. All right, I refuse, some of you will have heard this tirade before, I refuse to give in and to give up my favorite vlogging room, even though it is getting so cold in here. So if I breathe out and you see smoke and it's my breath, it's because it's the freaking Arctic in here and I'm too stubborn to pick a different room in the house. But also, this is the only room where somebody in my family is not going to walk past or walk by or talk during or any of that stuff. So I'm going to stay out here as long as I possibly can. So I read 9 books in November. 2 of those books were for like either a book club or a discussion. So The Weight of the Stars, Chloe from Thistle and Verse and I met together and talked about this book. So I believe I did a weekly wrap up focused on this book. And she also has the conversation that she and I had about the book on her channel. So this was one of my books for November. It is about 2 girls who meet, both have aspirations for being kind of like astronauts, and what happens when they come together and what happens next. So check out one of those videos if you're interested in hearing more about this book. The other book that I read, this one was for a book club discussion. It's for Boozies over on Bookstagram. This was her November book pick, and it's The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. We had the discussion a couple of days ago, and it seems like most people really enjoyed it, although some people really didn't enjoy it. So the book is about a woman who commits suicide, and she is in a library getting to experience some lives that she would have lived had she not backed out of a couple of her options for her life. So some people really didn't like how sad and depressing the main character was. But it's actually probably a more hopeful take on some of the things that are going on in the book. And it really is about some of the options and kind of how she's able to let go some of her regrets over time. So I have a discussion or a summary and a video about this book too. I will try and remember to put it in the cards. Okay, what else do we got? I pulled 5 TBR cards from my TBR deck. So that means that I had 5 additional books to read for the month besides the ones that I had for discussions. So one was a book over 500 pages. So for that one, I read The Knife of Never Letting Go. So The Knife of Never Letting Go was a book I checked out from the library, so I don't have it hold up, but I'll put it in this area somewhere. It's by Patrick Ness, and it is about a young boy who I believe is 12 years old, and he lives on a planet where humans, he's human, a settlement of people travel to another planet to settle on in a new space because the planet here has been not overrun, but we're basically running it into the ground. And so he is 12 and he's the youngest member of his community. So all of the women are dead and boys become men when they turn 13, and he's about a month away from being 13. So his adoptive parents one day tell him he has to leave, get the hell out of here. And he's on the run, even though he really doesn't understand why he's on the run or what is going on. And and everybody can hear each other's thoughts. So it's a massive book. From what I understand, there are 3 of them. It's a trilogy. It was really good. I loved it. I do plan to read at least the second one and see how I like it. And that was my book for 500 pages. I also had to read a historical fiction. So I picked a book during my TBR for this category that I decided really didn't fit the category very well. And so the category historical fiction is actually pretty broad. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I did a weekly vlog about this one just last week. Yep, last week. So I didn't love this book, but it was fine. It was worth 3 stars. I liked it. The main character is annoying. Nobody learns anything. Everybody's terrible. The fourth card was, or the third card, was read a middle grade or young adult book. For this one, I read Lions and Liars by Kate Beasley. So this super cute little book is about Frederick Fredrickson, who is a loser at school. And one of his friends has a theory of life that everybody kind of fits into a category similar to the animal kingdom. And some people are lions, like the kind of most popular boy in school, Devin. And some people are more like meerkats, and some people are gazelles. And Frederick Fredrickson is a flea on the butt of a meerkat because he is at the bottom of social standing. And he is kind of sad and pitiful, and he wants to have friends, and he wants to be liked, and he doesn't want to be a loser. And his friends aren't always very nice to him either. So he gets into some trouble, and he accidentally ends up at a disciplinary camp for boys. And he sees an opportunity to try and fit in. And so this book takes place over the couple of days that he is at this disciplinary camp, and he's missing. And as you can imagine, because he is 10 years old and the other boys are 10 years old, everybody learns something about what it means to be a friend and where they stand on the animal kingdom of their peer group. And he just wants to go on a cruise and he doesn't get to go. He's at disciplinary camp instead. So this was really cute. I'm glad I read it. I've had it on my shelf for a long time. If you look at the picture on the front and look at the picture on the back, you can definitely tell why I picked it. I love the artwork, and there are a couple of illustrations on the inside. The illustrator is Dan Santat. So I love this style. So that was that book for my TBR card. The TBR card that I'm currently missing, not sure where it is, was my least favorite trope. So my least favorite trope is insta-love. And I coincidentally read a book called Ties That Tether. I don't think I did a review for this one, but it's about a Nigerian woman who lives in Canada. She's Nigerian Canadian, and she and her parents immigrated to Canada when she was 12 years old, and now she's an adult, I think maybe mid-20s, and her mom is really trying to set her up with a Nigerian man from their same ethnic background. And the main character, whose name I can't remember, meets a man at a hotel, and they're instantly connected. And yeah, you know, she throws lots of things to the wind and starts a relationship, or she doesn't start a relationship. It's a one-night stand, and then it turns out that he works where she works. He's a new hire. So one-night stand turned colleague, co-worker. And so I did enjoy the book, even though, you know, falling into, you know, being overwhelmed by the emotions of the guy you meet at the bar isn't something I can relate to, unfortunately, maybe. And then there's a surprise. I think I did a summary for this one because I kind of remember wondering if this was going to be a spoiler or not, so I won't say it. But there's an element of the book that is a surprise that I've seen people complain about that people should know ahead of time. So you might want to just check around some of the reviews on Goodreads before picking it up if there are some things about one-night stands turned colleague tropes that you don't like to read about, just so that you're not surprised. My last TBR card pick was to do a Twitter poll. And so I asked Twitter, hey Twitter, pick between these two books, and I gave them Legendborn and Raybearer. And Legendborn won. This was also a chunky book, but was not quite 500 pages, so I couldn't use it as my door stopper because that was the criteria. Legendborn was great. I loved it. Everybody who's read it has loved it, as far as I can tell. So it is about a girl who is 16 years old, and she is able to see some things that other people can't see. She is in an early admission program, early college program at in Carolina, and it's a program that her mother went to as well, graduated from. And apparently there's a lot of history, and there's a secret society, and she has these skills that other people don't have, but she's trying to figure out what happened to her mom because she thinks that maybe something sinister was she's trying to figure out what happened to her mom because she thinks her mom's death was potentially the result of a murder or misdoing or something like that. So she talks her way into being a pledge to the secret society. Of course, the person she talks into it has a little thing for her. She has a little thing for him. It's all very cutesy wootsy pootsy poo. And one of the biggest tensions of the book is that the secret society is this highly influential, very wealthy, old money, historical society that almost, it has been exclusively white until she joins, and she is an African-American girl. And some of her skills, and her mother's kind of people historically were owned by some of the people who were in this other group. So there's a lot about the tension between these kind of, the history of one group versus the other, and, the colonizers taking power that doesn't belong to them and building their empire basically on the backs of people who were not benefiting from that, versus these powers that are used in a more respectful way from this other side as borrowed power. And she learns some of this stuff through flashbacks and through memory walks, which is pretty cool. There is an Arthurian link. So some people are calling this a Arthur retelling. And I don't think of it as a retelling, although I don't think that there are a lot of strict criteria to count as a retelling. But it's more of links to the Arthurian legend, I think, than a retelling. So I really liked it a lot. I will have no idea what it was about when the next book comes out. But I really enjoyed it a lot and had a lot of fun with this one. So I'm glad that Twitter picked it. Of course, I still want to read Raybearer, which I also have. Currently, I am reading The Five, which is left over from November. I started it as an audiobook. I have no idea where my headphones are, so I haven't read it for a little bit. It is about the 5 people whose murders are attributed to Jack the Ripper. And I believe I'm on the 3rd story. So this woman has done some research to find out more about the lives of these 5 women, and basically to reveal that a lot of the things that the police and detectives and everything assumed about these women when they were looking for Jack the Ripper were probably false, or based on false things from people who knew or didn't know these women. For example, I think it's well assumed that Jack the Ripper killed 5 prostitutes, but at least for the first 2 women that this author has talked about, there is very little evidence that they were actually prostitutes, but they were poor and lived on the street. And it was pretty common for women to be in short-term relationships with men because it was the best way to be safe from other men, was to be in a relationship. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of speculation, as you might guess, because she is attempting to sort of give them a voice where they haven't had one. But the speculation isn't completely out of what you might expect. So, for example, when she talks about the current story that I'm listening to is about Elizabeth, who the third victim, and the author is talking about how the woman had syphilis and lost a baby, had been turned out of her home, and she kind of speculates a little bit about the emotional state that would have put Elizabeth in. And you can, we don't know for sure this emotional state that Elizabeth was in, but we can speculate that there were a lot of feelings there. So it doesn't feel like the things that she's talking about are completely made up. It's just not confirmable because we don't know. So I guess that's it. I'm drinking and loving right now the Empath's tea from Witchwood Tea House. I got this in my box, in my Sips By box, which you will hear about in a couple of days because I already have that recorded. I think I'm going to post that on Saturday. So it's delicious. That's my November TBR. What did you read? What did you love? What did you think of the books that I read? Drop it below. And I will see you on the next one.